Welcome back to Operator Syndrome. We are uh, coming to the close of Steve's story. I'm done, so you won't hear from me ever again. Just kidding.
Oh, don't say it like that.
Just kidding. On the topic of my own wartime service, but Steve is wrapping up his. We just got done with two episodes on Extortion 1-7. Um, but a couple loose ends to round that out, or a couple final thoughts on that experience. Um, it was at least for me, and I'm sure for the listeners, it was you know an interesting. Everyone hears what they see in the news, what they do, what they do. I'm sure there'll be a movie about it one day, all those type of things. But the aftermath is the part that um, you don't hear that much about, and how it impacts the folks who are left behind. And so I just thought that was a lot of rich information. I appreciate you sharing that. But what did you have on your mind with regard to like closing it out?
Yeah, closing it out. I mean, we did two sessions on it. So just a couple like footnotes, I guess, on the end of it all. One is I did read the book that Patrick mentioned. I did not know this book existed, and I devoured it because I was right there in the midst of it. It really did honor the air crew, and made me feel kind of a little bit sad that like this air crew, these guys are just as much heroes as anybody. And they didn't get the exposure naturally that the SEALs get, um, just because this is the way the culture is. I mean, uh, and I actually had made a misstatement. I thought there were three. There were actually five air crewmen, and I want to read their names: Chief Warrant Officer 4 Carter, Chief Warrant Officer 2 Nichols, Sergeant Hamburger, Sergeant Specialist Bennett, and Specialist Duncan. So there were five. I thought there were only three, but then I got to thinking about it. I'm like, of course, there's two co-pilot. There's a pilot and a co-pilot. So all five of those guys are heroes. In addition to Team Logar, which were the dev group operators. Just wanted to mention their names as well. The other thing I wanted to mention is the heroic efforts of the Rangers, who secured the crash site. And I learned this from this book. I knew they were securing the crash site, but they basically made about a 2 mile sprint in really hard, dangerous conditions to get to that crash site. They were putting themselves at great risk because there's IEDs. They just made a mad dash to get to that helicopter site. In the unlikely event that there was a survivor, which there weren't, but they didn't know, nobody knew this, but they
Mhm.
were getting there to seal off that crash site, to say nobody comes near here, this is our space, and to try to assist if there were. And they exposed themselves to great risk to get there. You just don't want to make a sprint through sketchy areas, but they did. I was watching these guys maneuver at the command where this happened in Virginia Beach, and I was watching Predator feeds, watching these guys move around. I'm like, damn, that's dangerous enough all on its own. So I want to give a salute out to the Rangers who really came in a time when we needed them. And I was thinking too about Patrick. You like an hour, and this is about the time we met. It wasn't around 2011 that you and I first met.
It would have been some. I don't know how long after, but it was definitely after, because
Mm-hmm.
we first met, which people have asked before, and we haven't said we haven't said
Yeah.
not on purpose. Just we were waiting for it to
Yeah.
come up chronologically. So it you were giving you were filling in
Yeah.
one Sunday at the
Right.
church we were going to, and you
That's
had
right.
I mean, you didn't get into any of this type of detail, but you had, I believe, you had described um um the situation with
Yeah.
Extortion 1717 briefly.
Mm-hmm. That's right. It was a little later, but
Mhm, mhm.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I mean, the aircrew and it's Extortion 17. It's all the other ones too, right?
Yeah, of
It's
course.
the Red Wings. It's the stuff that kicked off at the beginning of any incidents at the beginning of the war. Roberts Ridge. We
Roberts
had, like,
Ridge.
the aircrew were right there. They're right
Yeah.
there in the mix. You know.
And I said it at some point in one of our podcasts, but that how much we owe these pilots, especially helicopter pilots, some
Mhm.
of the hairiest damn stuff you can ever imagine, not only inserting and extracting, special
Mhm.
ops units, but the Apache guys, the Little Bird, I mean, they're just that's some really dangerous stuff. And I don't think they get near enough credit.
It is. It's 100% a team sport. Sport's
Yeah.
not the right word, but you
Yeah.
get the sentiment. It's like all the pieces have to be there together for any of that stuff to have worked. And sometimes it didn't work, and it took the full team, everybody,
Yeah.
to get through it. SEALs can't muscle themselves out of
No way.
any type of they need the air crew, they need the ISR folks, they need the intel folk, they need, all that. And my experience was always that the organizations, chide each other. There's that. And,
Yeah.
and sometimes it's like it can be like actually tense. Like there can be some, I won't say bad blood, but it's just a lot of type A personalities, and
Yeah.
you're living in close like that stuff does happen. But I never once I never once personally was in a jam where even folks that give you a hard time aren't exactly like you said, sprinting to help,
Yeah.
sprinting to
Yeah.
show up, and vice versa. We're sprinting to get there, and it's just that type of environment and that type of structure. And that's why we that's why we did it, because we knew that existed. So
Yeah. Yep. All true. Yeah.
so
When you get a little bit older, I think when you're young, you're just cocky as hell.
well,
And you got
there's
your tribe,
definitely.
your literal tribe. And I mean, I'll bet you it's the same. Like, I mean, we talked about this when you're like East Coast versus West Coast. I mean, we're all SEALs, man. What? But we get tribalized. Like I'm sure, like first battalion,
Yeah.
second battalion, third battalion. Oh, those guys, those fuckers
Oh,
over here.
for sure. Although everyone just hates third. But
Yeah,
but
because they're all pissed off all the time.
yeah,
No,
it's stupid. It is absolutely that. It is absolutely that.
yeah,
I remember my last deployment, we were with a squadron from that unit. I remember one time we got spun up for something, and it was like completely out of the blue. And I don't think we were even supposed to go. It's like at the very last second they decided to add us to the manifest. They were just gonna go out on their own because we were just like in Extortion 117, we were alternating.
right.
Wasn't our night to go. They decided out of the blue they were gonna, and so they were all kitted up, sitting waiting there outside their town to go to the airfield, like, "Oh, the Rangers finally showed up." We're like, "Dude, we just found out that we're going." You know
That's
what I mean?
yeah.
Like, "Dude, listen, old man, got
Look,
it. You got a beard. You're
yeah,
like."
yeah, yeah. Look,
It's like we were like toddlers, like showing. It's like, dude, we just found out that
yeah,
we're coming on this, and
come
then
on,
they kinked that mission. So,
of course, man. When one of the funniest things, and I told our Patrick and my mutual friend Kevin, I was responding to well one of the funerals, one of the many funerals that came out of Extortion 17, and there was an assaulter I was talking with, a larger than life, colorful character, and he was talking about within Dev Group the rivalries
mm,
among squadrons, and I'm not going to go into the weeds of this, but and he was hilarious. He was cracking us all up. Then we were having a beer, and
mhm,
he goes, "Man, I fucking hate the tribe," which is a particular unit. There, not going into, but I was like, "God, that's so funny," and everybody cracked up when he said it
mhm,
because it's like sometimes like synergies get working, and It's like, damn, we can't catch a break. These guys over here are getting all the glory and accolades, and we're all doing the same damn job. But I just thought that was really revealing that even within a very elite community, there's still internecine rivalries.
Yeah. Even within, third battalion, third Ranger battalion, I remember I was a B code guy. So, we had a lot of history.
Black Hawk
Uh,
Down, right?
Black Hawk Down, Haditha Dam.
Oh yeah,
These guys like had done like legends, and
yeah,
of
yeah.
course I count myself amongst them. But you'd be like, like you'd think of like you'd look across at the ACO guys or the CCO guys,
Yeah, yeah,
be like, what are they about?
yeah, yeah.
Like, and it's interesting how, within, we call them companies, within the companies, there's just like a certain way they do things, like I could look at someone's kit and I could be like, that's like an ACO guy because they always do that shit with their pouches
Right.
on the back of their plate carrier, you know? And
That's
it's
so
like,
fun.
okay, and I could always sort of tell a BCO guy because they'd always use a certain pouch. Like basically everyone just uses it. So it was even like almost kind of like down to like the fashion, the kit placement. Like you could sort of tell you're side eyeing,
Yeah.
someone from another company. Be like, that's the way they do that. That's stupid. I don't know why they do that, but yeah, that rivalry is funny, and it's 100% just one of those youthful things because you look back and
It was,
you're like
yeah,
it
come on.
that doesn't your brain doesn't even process those things the same way it used to.
No, it exactly doesn't. Yeah, I guess that's where we get the word sophomoric. You think you know it all, and you just your frontal lobe hasn't even developed yet. But
Hmm.
yeah, it's all part of it. Well, yeah. So I was at Dev Group, kind of closing out my mobilization. I mobilized for a year with
Hmm.
Dev Group because I wanted to go downrange. And again, my gaining unit was still at the Pentagon, the chief of chaplain's office, actually ops and plans, which is anyway another unit together. It gets so confusing. I couldn't even understand it, so I don't expect our listeners will ever get their heads around this. But um, yeah, we worked. Man, it was about 2 3 months of just. I don't remember getting more than a few hours of sleep a night
Hmm.
for like a couple months. I think I could safely say that. And that was fine. Well, I couldn't sleep, and that got into maybe a little bit of operator syndrome issues. I know, like, geez, we talked about Restrepo. Those poor guys, I don't think they're ever going to have their heads screwed back on straight. Now, hopefully they can get help, but
Hmm.
um, I couldn't sleep for a very long time. I kept, my thing was, and this wasn't, like I say, it wasn't combat trauma. It was just emotional trauma of trying to help people and feeling helpless at the same time.
Hmm.
Where I kept having this recurring dream of seeing that predator feed of this damn helicopter burning. I
Hmm.
just couldn't stop dreaming about it. And I was like, and it would keep me awake, and I would self-medicate too much with alcohol usually. I went through
Hmm.
a stretch where I was drinking way too much, but that was the only way I could get to sleep. I didn't know. I went to a medical doctor, and he prescribed Ambien. Well, that was worse. That was actually worse than just having, you know, drinking to get to sleep. But I just wanted to just silence those visions of this horrible, horrible thing. I don't want to whine about it too much. Like I say, I didn't lose anybody close to me. I didn't
Hmm.
lose a family member, but I think it rubs off in a weird way. It's almost worse. I don't want to say worse. It just is weird how it rubs off on you because you're like, shit, man, I wish I could just swallow this pill and go deal with it. But, you know,
You were in a, I mean, you were in a tough spot. Um, everybody was, all of you all were. Um, but in some ways, you had an additional burden, we'll say a unique burden, in that the teammates the teammates could turn to their peers
Yeah.
to start to work through the grief and process it. Family members, same thing. But in your position, I mean, you're the guy. So when teammates and family and friends don't work, next escalation is talk to the chaplain, right? And that's you. And you have something of a responsibility to try to help them work through their stuff.
Yeah.
Um, but for you, you are you're you know, brand new there. You're brand new,
Yeah.
you're brand new there at that time, especially. So you're brand new there. You hold a position that's got to feel somewhat isolating or isolated, right? Because you're fulfilling a unique function there at the command. Um, you may not feel comfortable, for instance, sharing the people who are sort of, you know, bearing their souls to you, and that may not, I don't know, you tell me if that's like, I suspect you probably feel like it's not appropriate or maybe helpful in that those specific situations for you to be able to show as much vulnerability back in the other direction. You're sort of receiving receiving from them and letting them work through that stuff. Um, and then, from a peer's perspective, did you feel like you had anyone you could really talk to about what you were? I mean, you talked to him, the doc, but did you
Yeah.
feel like just sort of generally you could talk to anyone about what you were going through at the time?
No, no, not really. Not really.
Mm,
There's no one to really, there's no go-to. Yeah, it's just such a weird space because, here I'm wearing a trident
mhm,
as well as a cross. It'd almost be easier if you just didn't have the trident.
mm,
And so that, like, in some ways, because people were coming to me, man, my schedule was just booked solid of counseling. And I never know, and I feel like kind of like an imposter a
mm,
little bit because I'm like, here I am now. I'm a chaplain. I turned my back on the teams. I always had that looming over my head. Like, I never turned my back on the teams. I just got out and I went a different direction in life. And now
mhm,
here I am back, but I'm a team guy. So that it was just such a weird thing because I was like, well, I always had this insecurity that for the last, well, this was 2011. So for the last 10, 11 years, I haven't been in the fight, but I kind of wish I had been
mhm,
because these are my brothers. I wish, you know, but then they would open up to me like, man, on a number of occasions, it got kind of, it got kind of awkward because
mm,
people would open up to me and say, hey, here's what I'm dealing with, chaps. They'd say it like that. And I'm like, you know, that's a rough, that's a rough situation. But I want to speak truthfully. I want to take them seriously and their wives. That was the hardest thing was guys and their wives colliding, like worlds colliding, because they're going down. They're the most elite operators. Everybody worships the ground they walk on, and they come home, and there was real tensions because their wives were feeling, they don't want to be talked to like a military operator or like a support person,
mhm,
and it was really happening, and they were coming home and taking it out on their wives. And see, here's what's so hard. I don't fault them for a second. I know the pressure they're facing. Like, I don't know it real time, but I get it. I know what they're dealing with downrange, and I know when they come home, and it's such a fast turnaround. They come home, they can barely even catch their breath, and they're working up for to head back down. And then so their wives become like this, I don't know, this person that's supposed to fill this role, take
mhm,
care of the kids, keep the house, give me what I want when I come home. And there's a lot of resentment that builds up in that. And then these guys who are the best of the best, right? Everybody gets out of their way. Everybody worship, like I say, in the military culture, they just kind of have a free pass to just do whatever they want and get away with a lot. I'm not pointing fingers. I'm just saying that's just the way it works. And I get it. So when they come home and then there's this well, you better worship the ground. Well, hold on. It's your wife. It's
Hmm.
not, it's not time out, And I had to say this a couple times in counseling, and it was uncomfortable. And there was a couple of times where these guys, and I was trying to be as honest as I could and just say, look, you're a badass. I get it. Your wife over here has feelings and is being treated this way. And I remember one time, one I said, hey, you know, she says you're talking to her, talking down to her, and throwing out expletives and treating her like she's a second-rate citizen. I said, isn't that true? Am I getting this wrong? And it was really uncomfortable counseling. And she was like, no, that's exactly how I feel. And I'm like, hey, is there any truth to that, bro? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, okay, so you're going down range and you're killing bad guys, and I'd be right there by your side. And these are people who talk shit to their wives and treat them like second-rate citizens and don't want women to have an education and all of this. And man, one guy, he I could see the fire in his eyes. He was pissed that I had to say it. And I'm like, I'm asking a question. I'm asking a question. He's like, and then he was like, damn. He goes, man, I can wish you hadn't put it that way, but holy shit. And they left, and I'm like, I am not giving advice. I'm asking questions.
Right.
That
Right.
was those were some tough counseling sessions.
Yeah. I can't imagine.
Hmm.
It's yeah. I mean, it's such a unique. They're in it's such a unique circumstance. Like I'm trying to draw parallels to
Yeah.
something else, but it's
Hmm.
almost like it's almost kind of like I'm just saying. I haven't thought about this before. It's coming right off the top of my mind here. It's almost like folks reach a certain level of success, and in
Hmm.
the military, I think people, will compare them to like the best of the best, the top
Yeah.
guys, whatever. It's almost like whatever type of like counselings you might give someone who made it to like the NBA, right, or the
Yeah.
NFL or something. Like they may need it may be helpful to remain grounded, something similar. Like, hey, you are good. Congratulations, you've made it here. Um, the environment here can skew the way you start to see the world and the people around you in
Exactly.
ways that if you're sitting right here and you're a new guy, or
Hmm.
like, you probably don't want to become that person.
No.
So, like, here's some things to look out for. Here's this, here's that, like, so they can understand, because you described very interestingly the environmental factors that go into that. First off, there's the combat piece. That's a whole bucket of stuff. But those folks, they do have a unique place within the military, and they are given a lot of slack in the
Yeah.
way they get the job done, because that's what we ask them to do. We
Right.
we give them the hard missions and we say, just get it done.
Yeah.
However you got to do it, even if that means costing yourself your life. And these guys, they know that,
Hmm.
and they're willing to do it. And from their perspective, I suspect that they see it as like it's it's due to them in a way, maybe in a way. It's like, "Hey, I'm willing to do the tough mission. I'm willing to die, and, like, therefore cut me some slack."
Yeah.
I suspect that's a piece of it too. Um, but, I think it says a lot about you that, you were even able to have those conversations. I mean, knowing some of those personalities on a surface level, right?
Hmm.
Mostly. Like, I could definitely see, and especially for team guys, your history, the fact that you were one gave you the credibility to like like make like hold them accountable, right?
That's
To
a
to a certain extent. To
Yeah.
even be able to ask, like you said, phrasing it like a question. It's not advice,
I
but
was walking on eggshells, bro. I thought if it hadn't been for the trident out of my uniform, I think they would have grabbed me by the neck.
exactly. And and I think that's probably like a part of the culture too. I you all have a very unique culture.
Yeah.
I don't know that like a like a ranger who, you know, who is going through the same things, I don't know. Do they need would the message come across more effectively if a ranger were telling them that the way
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know I don't know that they would. I don't know
It's
that
different.
we I don't know that we're so this is not the right way to say it. I don't know how to say it. That we're so
Yeah.
wrapped around being a ranger that we need that we would need that. But the whole team guy thing, I mean, that's you all give it sometimes it seems like you all sort
Yeah.
of take something out and replace it with the team guy
Yeah.
sort of identity and and that is an important part. I mean,
It-
you all do amazing things when you all do that. You're capable of amazing things, but
yeah.
maybe that creates a situation where you're in the right place at the right time. The right guy, team guy, chaplain is there, able to have
Yeah.
those conversations in a way that, probably nobody else would. And hopefully, and I'm sure to the betterment of the people you talk to.
Yeah. And that's a good way to put it. It has its own binds. It can be an incredible force for channeling aggression toward that brotherhood. And it can also cause, let's be honest, look what happened with the book about Eddie Gallagher. It can create blockages to justice that can happen. So it's a really weird thing. It's a really weird thing. A humorous story when I was there to try to lighten, it and it was a crazy time, but I didn't have a phone yet, and my friend Kevin just had come back from he was out of town, and he'd just come back to the command. He's like, Steve, holy crap, and we were like, we hadn't caught up in 20 years or more, and he said, yeah, they taking care of you here, man. Let's go over to supply, you get you some running shoes because I didn't know the ropes, and this is just after this thing had happened. And I said, Kev, because I'm a chaplain, so the logistics side of the command didn't really get that I was a team guy. And I think I was in civilian clothes at the time. We were in a talk that was trying to respond to all these Keikos. And he said, what's, we were all using secured phones, encrypted phones. I mean, there were certain things you can do on them and certain things you can't. I mean, you know, but
Mhm.
I needed a secured phone. I still hadn't gotten one. And he's like, yeah, they taking care of you, man. And he's a master chief. I said, yeah, Kev, I can't get a phone. He's like, why the hell not? I said, well, I went over to the tech people, I guess, are busy. He goes, wait a second. And he sees like a tech guy walking by. He goes, come here. And the guy comes walking over and he goes, he needs a phone. And the guy's like, well, Master Chief, I can't remember how he said it. He goes, we're backed up. He goes, I said he needs a phone right now. And the guy's like, yes, Master Chief. He walked away. He brought the phone back for like 5 minutes. I
Mm.
had my encrypted phone. I was like, that's how things work around here. Like I was like timid. Like I kind of didn't want to tread on any water or just anybody's turf that I was just happy to be there. I was
Right.
like, oh yeah, these guys get it and they get it. They get what they want quick. So that's part of the dynamic that these people are used to. There's no bullshit. It's like, all right, we got a bigger mission here. And if you
Mhm.
forget your place, we're gonna remind you real quick, like where you are, blah blah blah. But
Right,
yeah,
because nobody, when the big mission rolls around, can't be like, "Oops,
yeah,
didn't get Bin Laden because the IT guy,
yeah.
the thing we needed was in the queue to get taken care of."
Any moving part,
Right.
yeah, doesn't
Like,
fuck.
you gotta cut through bullshit and just get what it is you think you need and to get the job done. Yeah.
Well, yeah. So my time there was. it was valuable. I'll never forget it. I'm thankful I was there at that time. It was just a really stressful time. It was like,
Mhm.
oh man, why couldn't it just been a normal stretch of a
Mhm.
year? But then at the same time, I look back at the families and I get notes from different people at the command that, man, like I'm not overly mystical, but it's like, man, God had you there for a reason at that time. And I look back and I'm like, wow, so honored to just give one person comfort, if not two or three.
Mhm.
Yeah, it was an amazing place. And it'll always, it'll always be one of those holes in your heart that you try to process it. And I wanted, I guess that was the beginning of my time. I transitioned, and we'll have one more episode of my story. But I went back to the chief of chaplain's office at the Pentagon, and man, they a guy in '06 kind of reprimanded me. He's like, "Where have you been, Watkins?" I'm like, I was out at Dev Group. I mean, he didn't know what that was. He was a chaplain, right?
Mhm.
I said, I was a pretty high command, and dealing with a lot of loss, and
Mhm.
doing a lot of funerals. He's like, "Well, you aren't here to do this policy work, and you mobilized." And he called me into a conference room, just me and him,
Mhm.
and I was like, "Sir, I uh, I volunteered for mobilization because I thought it was important work to do." He's like, "Well, do you know why you're here in the chief's office?" And I was like, "I'm honored to be here, but I'm writing speeches, and I'm doing policy work, and I know that's important." He's like, "Well, when we get people here, we're grooming them for bigger things and all this." And I was like, "Sir, to me, there is no bigger thing than helping families when they're hurting. I mean, that's why I'm a chaplain in the first place.
Mhm.
Not to walk around here. I mean, as honored as I am to be here." And that was really it. I think that conversation, bro, just between us, I was like, huh, I'm not playing. I'm not cut out for this game.
Mhm.
You know, it's fine. And I know we need great leaders and high position, blah. I'm like, hell, man, I'm here to try to be with my brothers and sisters in harm's way. And as a chaplain, that kind of sounds lame because I'm not going to get shot at, really. So that really was crushing for me to sit there and hear him kind of tear me down and he was trying to make me feel shitty because I had such a good deal and I didn't recognize it. And yet I'm ready to go to Afghanistan or Iraq. And none of these people, 99.9% of them in that office, they didn't want to go downrange. They didn't want to go to Djibouti. And I was like, sign me up. I'll go wherever.
Mhm.
So I don't know. I still kind of, you can tell, I'm kind of got a little bee in my bonnet about that. So I'm like, what the hell are we doing here?
A bee in the bonnet, indeed. I mean, that's sort of classic military though, isn't it?
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, you've got folks who just wanna do their job, and maybe
yeah.
that's the best way to describe it. Whatever the job is, you're a chaplain, you wanna do
Oh,
chaplain stuff,
yeah,
you know? An infantryman might wanna do infantry stuff, whatever it is. But the bureaucracy of the organization, staff time, it, it always beckons. It's an inevitability to end up, on staff somewhere doing something, and then people with people who are just interested in doing their job um, have to make that call. And most people who are of that mind decide to leave for that exact reason, right? It's like,
yeah,
I don't want to, like you said, I don't want to play this game.
yeah.
But then the bad part is the people who do like playing that game, they're the ones that stay behind.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Like they get promoted. It's the damnedest thing. It's the damnedest thing, man. And yeah, countless thousands driven out of the military just because you want to, yeah, when you want to do the deed, and when you see this political kind of thing going on, you're like, I don't want any part of it. I don't know. It's weird.
Even in the chaplain's office.
Even in Chapel, yeah, of all places.
Okay. Well,
Oh,
I guess so we'll wrap it up here.
yeah,
Sounds like we got one more to talk about how you closed out your time.
yeah,
Um and and we'll just go from there as a reminder for anyone else listening.
yeah,
If you got questions, comments, gripes, complaints, operator syndrome podcast at gmail.com. We've got some new folks we're introducing to you coming up not long after this episode, or you might have already met somebody new by now. I can't think of the order.
yeah,
We'll introduce some new folks, get some fresh perspectives, kind of all within sort of the same vein as we've been discussing. Just sort of real discussion about the good, the bad, the ugly, about their time in service, and hopefully that's useful to whoever's listening. So thanks again, and we will catch you in the next one. Bye.
cheers.